Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Nicole Frolick of Inflexible Me, and today I'm sharing with you a very important interview that I just recently did with 3 gentlemen who agreed to come on my channel, and I feel very honored to have had this discussion with them. You guys are going to love the information that is shared today. It is highly valuable and very important to all of us understanding as a collective where the masculine actually is at. I will be doing a Divine Feminine Roundtable as well. That will be coming up shortly. But first, I wanted to start with the Divine Masculine because I do feel that they're underrepresented. As a female, I don't tend to see a lot of masculine out there, especially in the spiritual community, speaking their voice. It's not because they're not out there. I just feel like they're underrepresented. And, you know, we understand that our perception creates our reality and our belief system. And if we continuously don't have these representations in our reality, we may continue to believe that the masculine is further along in their evolution than the feminine. And I couldn't disagree with that more, especially after this conversation, and as well as all of the wonderful men here who are watching this channel. You leave incredibly valuable information in the comments, or you send me the most beautiful emails that highlight how much your souls have evolved. And so, and of course, I've got fantastic females out there, but this is a masculine discussion, so don't worry, you're gonna get your spotlight on the next video. But for today, I really want to share this discussion. I think it's important. We're going to be talking about a lot of topics such as the misconception of being an alpha and why it's important to bring back the alpha male. We're going to be talking about family structure, relationships, the ascension process, masculine and feminine energies harmonizing. We're going to talk about how the deep state has completely devalued the feminine and how that implicates the society as a whole. There are so many topics we're discussing in this video. I highly implore you to watch the entire thing. It is long. It is 2 hours. But the reason why is because there was so much good information coming out. And I know that both the men and women who are watching this are going to find so much value from listening to these 3 men share their ideas and their perspectives with us. So without further ado, let's jump into the interview, and I hope you all enjoy it. Please leave some information in the comments below, your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you and keep the discussion alive. So without further ado, let's jump right into the roundtable discussion with my Divine Masculine. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I am here with 3 gentlemen who have agreed so graciously to come on my channel and have a roundtable discussion, although it's square right now. We're going to have a roundtable discussion about the Divine Masculine because I do feel that the Divine Masculine is quite underrepresented in the spiritual community, but just in general, I don't feel like we're hearing enough from the DM, and they have a lot to offer and say, and I've recently gone through some of my own struggles, and I have to say, so many of you out there have reached out to me. So many of the men have reached out to me with emails, comments, with really beautiful, supportive messages that really showcase to me that the masculine is actually a lot more evolved and along the path than I think they're getting credit for. And so I wanted to give this discussion to you. I'm also going to be doing a Divine Feminine Roundtable, and then these gentlemen are hopefully going to come back, and we're going to have a roundtable discussion with the women and have a discussion on union. So first, I'd like to introduce you guys to Justin Deschamps, who is the owner of the website Stillness in the Storm, which is a venue where cutting-edge news, research, conspiracy, health, and consciousness information can be shared for the purpose of making the world a better place. He's also spoken at various conferences such as the Eclipse of Disclosure, Conscious Light Expo, and the upcoming Portal to Ascension on May 18th. We also have Benjamin Stone, who is an integrative medicine practitioner and a practitioner of humanitarian services, award-winning author, a health educator, plant-based nutritionist, old soul empath, intuitive psychic medium, researcher, a healer in energy modalities, core health facilitator, and currently working on his PhD in natural medicine based on quantum physics. And lastly, we have Michael Daniels, who is a scientist in molecular biology, who just finished up with a very long-term consulting job with IBM, and is now a free agent, currently getting deeper into the shamanic path and training. He's also been on my podcast. He was on episode 46. He was our scientist who experienced a huge Kundalini awakening. So Thank you, Michael, Justin, and Ben for coming on today to help represent our masculine out there.
Good to be here.
So let's get started first, and let's clear this up, because there are a lot of misconceptions about the divine masculine. Is it just a physical incarnation? Is it an energy? Justin, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Well, the divine masculine, and I'd also like to throw feminine in there. I think there's a lot of different perspectives on it, and all of them seem to have value. So I'm going to offer just one little piece of the puzzle, that it's not the total by any means. So when I'm looking at trying to figure out what these terms mean, I like to break down the word. So the word divine tends to mean the all-inclusive relationship and connection between things. So in that sense, the masculine force would be something that is an activator or catalyzing agent that activates the potentials within any type of environment. So the divine masculine would be the all-pervading, all-encompassing, activating force that is arguably imposed from either the universe, or if you have a theistic perspective, from God or the creator. And I would say, just to flip that with the divine feminine, that I think the divine feminine is like the repository of unmanifested potential. When these two things come together, they beget children or manifested reality in some capacity.
Thank you. That was great. Michael, what are your thoughts?
Wow. I agree fully with Justin. For me, it's all about balance. It's the experiences that I've had some very unique experiences that taught me the value of balancing both the masculine and the feminine, and that where most of the troubles and difficulties we see that we may bring up in this discussion, they come about because of the imbalance, because of, in many cases, it's done by design to unbalance people, to knock them off their foundation, to polarize people from one side to the other, and have them bickering across the chasm. And just knocking someone off their foundation, one would say, they're not going to make the best decisions for themselves. And when that happens, the decisions may be made in favor of someone else who is doing a lot of things by design that people are unaware of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest issues right now is the identity process, because so many of us are remembering not just who we thought we were as kids growing up in this world, but who we have been over lifetimes at a soul level. And then you bring that identity into understanding who you are here, and we have all these confusing ideologies that are set out in front of us, and a lot of it's done to confuse us. And I mean, just from a very simplistic point of view, we all have masculine and feminine energies. And the reason why I'm having you guys here today is because as a woman, it is important for me to see female role models, but it's also important for me to see male role models. And there are certain things that I get from females as a female that are important, and I assume there are certain things as a male that you get from other males that are very unique to you as well. So Ben, what are your thoughts on the masculine and feminine energies?
Well, I definitely agree with what everyone has said so far. In addition to that, I might phrase it a little bit differently in relationship to, say, quantum physics, in the sense that we come down here as expressions, both the magnetic being the feminine and the masculine being electrical. And to agree with the points that everyone has said, then there is a relationship that polar opposite is essential in the aspect of growth. And so as we talk about this repository, or was mentioned for the feminine, well, yes, I see it, or I refer to it perhaps as the vortex, because it's magnetic in nature. brings in a lot of potential. Yes, it impregnates all potentialities much more easily in this reality. And then the masculine penetrates that vortex, if you will, and brings it into linearity in order for us to fully realize it in this 3D, this three-dimensional hologram that we're playing out. I'm in agreement with the fact that we internally both support or are made of, I should say, both masculine and feminine energies. And I know that we'll get into that discussion more because I have lots of ideas, of course, around what's going on, such as has been alluded to here, that there is a purposeful, not just from, let's say, we'll call the 1%, but there's also a purposeful, I feel, divinely planned placement always in our reality, so that we can look at something and say, where are we asleep? Where are we imbalanced? And at the end of the day here, if we can bring this polarization together, the quantum field is non-duality. We're all interconnected and entangled with one another. So it's really important, to me anyway, to continue to unfold and unpackage all of the different nuances that we're seeing out there at this time, and bring it together and I'm trying to find the messaging by which I can communicate to people so that we can bridge gaps between the sleeping, shall we say, the awakening, and those who are quote unquote awoke. We continue to create these polarizations, which I think we can overcome, especially with people that I'm sitting with here. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was great. All three of you, that was fantastic information to share. Thank you so much. I think, why don't we just start off with the basics here on masculine energy. And any of you three can jump in here first, but what energies of the masculine do you feel are, what do you think people are really benefiting from right now, but where do you also feel like the real struggle is when it comes to the masculine energies? And how do you see that playing out in our current world right now, or in just your current reality?
Well, let me make one comment. I'm sure Justin will agree with me. And what Ben discussed is, Ben talked about duality, and we're all down here, whether we're awoken, we're sleeping, we're spiritual or not. We're in doing this messy dance in duality and the polarities. And you've got your male and your feminine and every little thing in between. And that's difficult enough just by itself, in one little arena. But we're in a multidimensional arena, you see, that not only do we have our own little dance, that we're having to deal with our traits of the masculine and the feminine and the divine, but we have influencing factors coming at us. Some may say, some may not, also from a multidimensional controlling standpoint. So I just wanted to make that comment to kind of really get this discussion expanded. And again, it's going to be difficult enough, just the male and female interaction and that, but I have a feeling that the conversation is going to lead more into how they're influenced for someone else's gain, how people are polarized within those. There are a lot of male persona that have been manipulated to not feel, to not be intuitive. You know, as kids, as children, we're taught to shake it off. You know, we're hurt, our feelings are hurt. Shake it off. You know, be tough, be a man. You know, it starts from an early age, just within our own arena. You know, but then you add into corporate influences, you know, the industrialized complex influences that want to manipulate your behavior, you know, and this discussion can go 1,000 different directions.
Oh, it can. It most definitely can. So tell me then, Michael, what, if you could pick, narrow it down to a specific, like, masculine energy that you have, that you've struggled with, and one that you've been able to actually cultivate within you that's made a difference in your life right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think for me, it is, you know, inspiration, engaging others. I mean, I've earned my living as a recruiter for the last 25 years, helping individuals get careers with large corporations. And I've used a lot of abilities that I had to build a relationship with these individuals, to find their strengths, to identify certain strengths, to take them down a path of enabling their potential. You know, where can your traits best be used for your greatest potential in your career for XYZ employer? You know, and it's a difficult question to kind of just narrow down, but you know, I'll have to leave it at that.
So it sounds to me like you've been able to give people some structure and direction,
You know,
at least unveiling a path that they may have not been able to find just on their own.
yeah, you know, and you know, more of like a benevolent, guiding, leading type of influence, being an advocate for the individual's goals and aspirations, learning what is important to them, and offering guidance, leadership in a way that may nudge them down a path that they haven't thought about, that could be beneficial not only to them, but, you know, for employers seeking certain talent, say in quantum mechanics or physics or molecular biology or chemistry or sales, what have you. I've worked across the board with thousands of people. And, you know, just that discussion makes me think about leadership in the community, you know, mentoring, young children, sports, you know, being a strong role model, not one that would, you know, be more of the polarizing, womanizing, hey, you need to be strong and go out and be a predator and take control of everything in your life, you know, which kind of creates a victimizer type of a scenario, which can be exacerbated. I mean, I think it's that victimizer is exacerbated across the world for a reason.
Well,
yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
going to say that perpetrator mentality is the wounded masculine. It's an example of when someone, male or female, have gone into their wounded masculine and they've become more predatorial in a sense. Not the victim, but the perpetrator.
Yeah, and just to kind of bring all that around, is there's so many opportunities that these traits can be used for the good, you know, in mentoring, in leadership, in working with children and or professionals, like in my case, 20-year professionals, to help them start a new career somewhere. But the other side of the coin is there are lots of opportunities for bad advice to be injected in these type of scenarios that may lead one astray.
And that's where boundaries are important. Justin, what are your thoughts?
I'd say for the masculine and feminine energies that are both influencing the earth right now, I think I would kind of loosely group them into three categories. So, and And anytime we're talking about the divine masculine and feminine, you know, I think that the as above, so below principle should be recognized. So we have in any place that you look at trying to figure out, okay, where is the divine masculine feminine energy working? They're working at so many different levels. It's like a fractal. So you look at one little thing and then you actually see in that thing a whole bunch of other masculine and feminine relationships all working together with each other. So I would say from like a personal perspective, one thing to think about is that the feminine energy is receptive. So psychologically learning how to accept the truth of your experience, no matter how hard that might be, is a really good thing to do because it allows you to properly organize your reality. And we are creatures that navigate our reality by creating representational systems or knowledge. So a map of knowledge that represents the world. So if you're ignoring a whole part of reality, if you're not invoking receptivity to that, then your map is incomplete. But that has to be balanced by the masculine energy. So if you're just receptive to everything, you just blindly believe what anybody tells you, or you blindly believe the random thoughts that pop into your head, then you could easily be misled. Well, the masculine energy brings order to that which has been received personally. So I would say being receptive, being unconditionally loving with the truth that you're absorbing in your experience at a personal level is the feminine energy, whereas being discerning is the masculine energy, and the two work together. Mm-hmm. You know, is it just a general understanding that I've developed in trying to figure out what these things are. It's very difficult to completely divorce the masculine from the feminine. They're so intermingled and so connected. They're really at work at all times, even in not so great areas. So at a interpersonal level, at a social level, I would say that, you know, right now we have a situation where in any social setting, there's always going to be my opinion, my truth versus your opinion, your truth. And when we get out of balance with the personal level of discernment and receptivity, then you could tell me something that doesn't jive with my belief system. And now I'm rejecting it, not because it's not true, but because I don't want it to be true. Mm. And then that's where I would say the masculine energy can be overemphasized, because the masculine energy can deny or reject an aspect of reality. And in this case, in a social setting. So I would say the challenge of balancing masculine and feminine energies in a social setting is learning how to be receptive and actually listening to what somebody says, and then having a discussion of merit, or instead of me trying to smash your truth with my truth, why don't we just pool our resources together? Let's be receptive to each other, and then we'll pool our masculine energies together so we can discern together and figure out what the truth is for both of us, and then ultimately what that value is highlighted by that truth. And I would say universally, I think the whole human race and the cosmos itself is always going through this interplay between trying to be receptive to what is emerging in reality and in general, because we live in an emergent universe, while also trying to organize and balance that. And I think that's balanced by seasons. You know, one of the Hermetic principles is the principle of rhythm. So we have seasons where we can absorb a lot of information, but then we have to go within and we have to like organize that. So that's an interplay right there. And I think at a universal level, at a human race level, even at a potentially Gaia level, planetary consciousness level, we're receiving a lot of these energies of transformation and the so-called ascension and things like this. And taking the time as a people to have these discussions, to allow ourselves to synthesize and integrate and have a marriage of ideas across a wide population, I think is another one of the challenges that we're all facing at this time. So yeah, that's a little rough shot of some of the things we could speak to on that.
Well, yeah, that's very present in our world right now. Opposing viewpoints, people wanting to express, or maybe people scared to express. And so you have that, and you're right. I mean, the energies are strongest when they're in union and working together, intermingling, harmonizing, coherent. But we live in a world where we're taught to really separate things. And sometimes we need to, in a way, just to help people get back to basics. It's really hard. Like, some people are so separated that they can't even understand how the two go together. But like you said, with the receptivity, it's so important for us to be listening to one another, to receive that information, but then also know to exercise your masculine energy to be able to express yourself in a really healthy way where you know, you can't control how someone's going to receive you, but you can control how you deliver your message. And I think that's a really important masculine quality that all men and women, I think, are really, well, they're learning the receptivity, because not a lot of people are listening and receiving more information, but then also how do you express that in a way that you're speaking your truth, but you're doing it in a way that is respectful and maintaining proper boundaries.
Right, agreed.
Ben, what about you?
Well, you know, I agree with everything you said as well. I have a few other points maybe I'll add to this. I feel that if I was to talk about the divine masculine and the divine feminine, even to bring them both in because they would align this way, that would be the blueprint that comes out of the quantum field, the two-dimensional, all that is, when it expresses into the three-dimensional, has a divine blueprint. Now, you've heard lots of different things. You say, well, I had a contract, there's karma, there's all this jazz, right? But at the end of the day, there's a blueprint that's coming down. And I feel that, you know, as part of this learning and process to send back information to the divine all that is, to learn more about itself. Of course, we're plunked into this incredible fun game so that we can have these discussions. And so as part of that, then we, you know, we're able to express what I call the fake or the false masculine and feminine. And those are really just distortions, if you will, which is what disease is, distortion from our divine blueprint. And I think that has led to, at least this is how I'm, you know, taking it in for myself. I believe something that's happening there is we have given a lot of voice. I mean, this is the greatest time in history to give everyone a voice, to which, you know, I personally at times feel that, you know, we should be handing out muzzles sometimes, but, you know, that's just a personal opinion. And so what I think, though, with giving voice to everything is perhaps more of the distortions and giving honor. I give honor to these distortions that are communicating to us, to the divine masculine and feminine, that especially the masculine, which is what we're talking about today, that tends to hide itself, its ability to, especially in the past 30 years, of how, I mean, I've watched since I was a kid about, you know, sitcoms and TV commercials pinning men as completely useless, stupid idiots, and thank God Mom is there, and thank God Pizza Hut's there because Dad blew up the dinner, and like all of this BS, for lack of better words. And I know, you know, I'd like to use different words, but so I think that what's happening in this state is we need to pay closer attention to the expressions that are happening, and then look deep within ourselves to try and figure out why these particular distortions are being communicated. Now, admittedly, at the ego level at times, I'm just completely flabbergasted by what I totally think is complete lunacy at times coming out of the mouths of people, or just pure propaganda to create a lot of trouble. And so as part of that, we've also got this mix between beta males and alpha males. And we have done an incredible job of making beta males. In fact, we got so much beta male that we almost don't even have male. And that for me is why we end up throwing off this spectrum of some people might not like this, but for me, from a spiritual perspective, this sliding towards transgender or changing, because yeah, I could sit here from from a toxicological perspective of how we've screwed up hormones and nutrient deficiencies and stuff like that. But if I bring it back down to just the spirituality of things, that extreme perspective, which again I honor, I think is, hey, it's wonderful, whatever you want to be, but is also showing us just how far we've been suppressed. It would be different, in my opinion, if we were seeing also a reawakening of the alpha masculine, which really sits, like we always, and some people think that the alpha is this big, strong, create a lot of chaos, the hunter, all of this stuff. But the reality is that's the quiet sage. It can be it can be all of the archetypes, basically, is what I'm saying. But we've created just so many beta males that we have lost sight. And my concern, perhaps, in this journey is that if we don't help masculine to communicate and to come to the forefront in terms of what it means to be a masculine, we not only continue to create the chaos that we have today, because I personally believe in natural order, and as long as you screw up the masculine energy, then you're going to screw everything up. Now, it could happen in any part of the natural, law of things. But at this juncture, we've been, smacking down the masculine while fake, I know you're going to get into feminism, while sort of throwing this fake femininity out there of, overpowering, like men have been this horrible suppressive creature.
Well, I think that's a great segue into the next topic of why don't we talk about the devaluing of the masculine and I guess the hyperinflation of the feminine. And when I'm saying that, I'm saying it from the perspective of the ego, because I'm pretty vocal about this on my channel. I'm not a feminist. I never have been, because I don't believe in where current feminism is right now. I do believe in original feminism of bringing us into a place where we have equal rights and all of that. I think we have that now. So why don't we, and in the process of doing that now though, and this is just natural though in some ways. I do believe this is partially natural. When the pendulum has to swing the other way, it's got to go a bit more to the extreme and it starts to even out. And so this does happen. Justin, what are your thoughts on the devaluing of the masculine and where we're at right now in society?
I think it's important to remember that the people who run the world, so to speak, to put it simply, the deep state, the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they unquestionably know about the truth about the divine masculine and feminine. They know about our nature. They know about our psychology. They know about our spiritual origins. And they engineer society to confabulate these natural proclivities so that they can weaponize them against us later. And I think they're using that same thing right now with feminism and masculinity. I mean, if you look at what third wave feminism or neo-feminism or contemporary feminism is, it's effectively trying to usurp traditional masculine roles. Even the look of the average, Margaret Singer, Bible thumping feminist is a very masculine look. So what's happening is what I would say Carl Jung articulated very well. We have a mass kind of animus possession being promulgated and promoted by the deep state, by the media, by universities and various sources to try to make women not more feminine, but make them more masculine so that they can dethrone the masculine. And, to speak to your point, Benjamin, I think you're completely right. What we have is a cultural environment that destroys true alphahood while engendering and incentivizing betahood. And, man, there's just so much I could speak to on this, but let me narrow it down by saying that psychologically, men and women are different neurologically, physically, and psychologically, and spiritually, I would assert. And they have different proclivities. They're meant to work together in unison. And what's happening right now is we have an overemphasis of feminine qualities in men and an overemphasis of masculine qualities in women, which undermines their natural proclivities and prevents them from working properly together. So for example, men tend to be better at complex and abstract thinking. This is why they do well in the STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Women tend to be better in the social arenas. They're much better at coordinating abstractions related to socialization, yet while also being very sensitive to physical realities like aesthetics. And there's a reason why that's the case, which I'd love to get into. But my main point I'm getting at is that when these two things work together, then the order-making principles of the masculine energies in both men and women can come online better, as well as the feminine principles of receptivity and openness both come online better. So if we had a true alpha in the world, to speak to the masculine question, an alpha isn't somebody who just bull in a china shop, runs all over people and asserts his will like a glorified tyrant. No, a true alpha in the deepest sense is meek. They use their will and their authoritative power, so to speak, their strong masculine energy, to develop honorable agreements where you actually ask somebody, what do you want to do? Let's work together. Let's unify our wills, not oppress your will in favor of mine. If we had that type of true alpha, then the counterbalance of the beta would slowly start to diminish, and the overemphasis of the feminine would slowly start to diminish. And I think right now the problem is that, and I'll leave it at this, women in particular, and when I say women, I mean the actual women on this world. If you look at history and the way that the deep state has manipulated societies, one of the ways they do it is they destroy the values inherent in women, because that translates to the society. From a social perspective, women are the repositories of value and mores in a culture. And by virtue of the fact that they choose who they will select as a mate, if they have lack of values in their culture, if they don't know how to choose a good alpha who actually is respectable and a true personification of the masculine, then they will choose the machismo false alpha, or even worse, they'll choose the beta, and then that becomes the proclivity of the culture. So women's power to guide society and shape society is completely unacknowledged, I would say, in the mainstream. And the deep state know absolutely how to do this, and they have been doing it successfully for many thousands of years. I'll leave it at that.
Wow, that was amazing. Was it Michael who you trying to say something?
I mean, he's dead on. I mean, like I was saying earlier, I mean, this is a messy dance between the male and female to begin with, just on an organic basis. But when you have such a large negative agenda, an industrialized deep state, the cabal, archonic influence on other dimensions, the deck is almost stacked against us. And what we have to start doing is focusing, okay, how has this deck been stacked against us, and start systematically, getting to a state of, surrender, almost a state of being the wise observer, and not be so damn polarized about things that you've been inflamed over. An example would be, war, media coming at individuals to enrage people. But to get more of being in the decision-making process, more of that wise observer, things are going to happen. Don't jump into the fray and be knocked off your balance. Rise above it, be the observer, make clearer-headed decisions, not influenced by that negative agenda, which is specifically coming at everybody from every angle to knock them off their balance, knock them off their foundation. And I think, people talk about conspiracy this, deep state this. I mean, it's there. And it's so pervasive. So many, for millennia after millennia after millennia, they've been thinking of ways to manipulate and control personalities to get them polarized and on extremes across a big chasm, bickering at each other. So how do you fix that? I think you need to realize first the amount of manipulation that's coming at individuals, whether it's the masculine or the feminine, from an early age, and then start systematically working to improve where one has been manipulated into a better state, more of an observer state, more of, not reacting negatively when you've been led into a polarizing situation between the two energies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, as a woman, I was very much in my masculine energy, but I would say I was more in my wounded masculine energy growing up. I understood very early on that women were devalued, and I just understood myself that as a woman, I would be devalued if I acted more like a woman. And so I just chose to kind of be more masculine energy because I thought it was more respected, more important. And I was like that for the first 30 years of my life. And I know that, especially through my 20s, I remember having discussions with my girlfriends or even just with men in general, where we would just kind of shut down, like, you can't say that, you don't know what it's like to be a woman. And I would just constantly shut the men down from having an opinion. And I can see that was 15, 20 years ago, and where that's gotten to us now, where we're not allowing the man to have a voice anymore because we've asserted ourselves so much into thinking you can't even have an opinion because of your biology, of your gender. And I think that's a really scary place for us to be in. I also see how, what I woke up to is like, wow, my femininity has been used against me, where I lost my connection with my feminine energy to try and be more masculine. So I'm actually someone who went through that. And the last 12 years or so has been a journey of reestablishing my connection to my feminine energy and nurturing it and understanding its true power, but then also not forgetting the true power of my masculine energy and bringing that into harmonization. And I think, for all men and women, we cannot continue to separate one another or put down one another, because every time someone puts down a man or every time someone puts down a woman, you're devaluing the masculine in you or you're devaluing the feminine in you. So every time we say that a man is less than, we're devaluing our own masculinity. And we have to understand the mirror aspect of this world and how that is. You're right. We are absolutely being thrown off our balance so that we're constantly in chaos and at odds with one another. Whereas the true power comes in, what if we all started to realize how great we are when we work together? Not in the way that I think you should work with me, but how about we just start communicating and figuring this out and doing this beautiful synergistic dance of masculine and feminine. And I think that's kind of what people are starting to awaken to now. And that is the true union. Union isn't just about a romantic engagement of two people. The union first starts with ourselves, within our own masculine and feminine energies, and then we become models of that. And I think that's our greatest way of teaching, is modeling healthy masculine and healthy feminine behavior within ourselves so that others can see that and learn from that. Because I think that goes without saying, that's one of the best ways we as humans actually learn.
Yeah, and let me make a comment on that, Nicole. It reminded me, I've had a very interesting journey. I had an overnight awakening. I was the agnostic scientist for years, never had a spiritual bone in my body. And then all of a sudden I have this overnight awakening. I'm able to see things more clearly. But, you talked about, we can talk about the masculine traits, the feminine traits, and we can talk about dozens of all of those and how to improve those. But what really matters is balancing those positive traits. And I'll give you an example of why it's so important. And I think, Ben, you'll agree with me on this. There was a time I had some counseling with a spiritual advisor and got some interesting information. And he said, Michael, go into deep meditation and ask your divine feminine some questions. And it kind of like Nicole, I had an issue where I don't know, I had some very strong feminine energies that came into this incarnation with me that I've been dealing with throughout my life. And I've been working to balance that. But he said, go into meditation and ask your divine feminine some questions. So, oh, wow, that's interesting. I had like 12 questions. I'm writing things out. And I go into deep meditation and I just ask one question, show me what is of my highest good in this topic. And I was given a vision that was seared into my mind. And what it was, Nicole, was the divine feminine energies, the divine male energies. I was shown these energies and feeling, and I was shown how they came together in immaculate balance. And then what I was shown in that vision was creation of a universe. And the story there is immaculate balance. I mean, the lessons that we're here to learn are in the duality from extreme to extreme. We're polarized here to here, and, we do this crazy dance, and that's where lessons are learned. But it all comes back to, what are we here for? This is a school. The world is a school. We're here to learn lessons. And homeostasis, balance in any situation, the human body, biological processes, spirit, mind, body, balance of these energies are what we should be focusing on, and not, the individual problems and things that create chaotic discourse that we all kind of get on a slippery slope talking about, oh, I have a better story, balance. The yin, the yang, we've all heard of it, light, dark, the balance.
No, absolutely. Ben, do you agree with him?
Yeah, I do. It's fun kind of being last, because you guys so many incredible points, and I'm like, oh, I want to pull them all together to some degree. Going back to the, I want to touch a little bit on the observer. I want to touch a little bit on what you said, Nicole, in terms of that internal expression. Then, we came back to even the homeostasis. And then I'm going to pause it maybe a little bit of a solution, at least from the direction that I'm looking from. So, I'm going to start by saying that when we talk about this divine, perfection of yin and yang, I know that I have triggered, we'll call it the unstable feminine, many times when I have said that the feminine, the divine feminine in particular, absolutely craves the masculine order. And likewise, the masculine has no freaking purpose without the feminine energy. It would be completely ridiculous here if we didn't have the feminine energy. So to just tie that back into the homeostasis and talk about because I think this is a good point. And to tie that back into the cabal or influence in a negative way, our formative years are where we're programming our subconscious mind that is running 95 or 98% of the day. Now, during those formative years is also where our homeostasis balance has been set. So when we talk at this juncture, when we're talking about homeostasis, and we've been programmed with, distorted bullshit from these programmers, for lack of better words, then we have no choice but to break outside of homeostasis and get into a place of discomfort and disruption. I'm not saying violence. I'm not, it may go there, and it will go there if we do not take the approach that we're doing like right now, to have these conversations, to try and sort of gently wake people up to this. Then it will go so polarized that it'll be catastrophic. But I think somewhere in between there, we can, at least ourselves. So to your point, I think it was you, Nicole, where, it's like, well, we need to come back to ourselves, heal that, bring that together, live by example, utilizing our understanding, or, it's getting out there to other people, our understanding that we have a choice to be conscious creators. We're all creators, but do you want to be a conscious creator? Well, that's what we want. And so by living in that place, in conscious creation, in connection to the quantum field, we can start shifting. Like, we don't need the whole planet to believe what we're doing. We need a small percentage, because the 100th monkey effect is real. It's a scientific fact. We just need enough of us to be on the same page, energetically expressing from this, we'll say divine masculine, to keep using the word. And that in and of itself will start to shift the order. Someone mentioned about the, and I apologize that I'm forgetting names and stuff already, but someone talked about, I think it was you, Michael, about, not creating too much chaos and fighting, and this is what they're creating. And this is what my observation is in terms of the quote unquote sleeping, awakening, and awoke. What's happening is that, and it makes sense, you're sleeping, just pretend you're sleeping, and then I wake you up, especially if I come in and wake you up, you're going to be like, oh my God, it's an alien, it's a murderer, it's a whatever. And we create this activism, if you will. This is what the awakening is doing. We're creating this activism that's causing unnecessary chaos, which then the sleeping create a greater wall of resistance, because they're like, whatever this dream is, like, I don't buy this craziness. And then the awoke are the 1%, unfortunately, for lack of better words. And so are we, those of us who are getting there and saying, whoa, hold on, I'm a conscious co-creator, and I need to set my homeostasis bar, not in this, beta male, I'm unworthy, I've been told for 30 years that I'm useless, and, I'm a white man, so it's unfortunate that, the world is so great because of what we did, but we should be, chastised for it. That kind of stuff upsets me, in particular because it's not true. And so we need to, just to bring this back, we need to set that homeostasis bar. We got to break out. We got to challenge ourselves. We got to challenge people around us to get to that next level. And the body and our brain itself, and then our divine blueprint, will shift accordingly. And then everything on the planet will be great. It's because we're doing damn nothing that it's going crazy like this. We're allowing the distortions to have control over this. So it's about empowerment is really where I'm going with this. For me, it's about teaching empowerment. I don't have all the answers clearly. But again, that's the beauty of connecting with guys like you. We can come up with ways to communicate this information, to create empowerment, so that people can go, that's all right. All of the crazy stuff is going on out there, but I am strong in myself, and I am connecting and changing my blueprint, and then connecting. We're all entangled, okay? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is a quantum principle. We're all entangled. So do you want to be entangled by putting your energy and fighting against this distortion? Or do you want to learn what it is to be in divine alpha masculine and recreating that energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you and I were, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was you, Ben. We just had Mother's Day yesterday, and I wanted to talk about the family structure and the role of the father. And again, to all of my audience viewers, anyone who's watching this video, this is not a discussion to diminish the mother or the feminine. Both are equally important. We're just having a discussion right now about the masculine or the father or the divine masculine energies, which everyone has in them. So who would like to start about, who would like to open up the discussion on family structure and the role of the father and how that's
I'll go ahead and
right now? Justin?
Yeah, sure. I'll start the ball rolling. Well, to kind of put our feet on the ground a little bit, just to throw some observational science out there. One of the things that I discovered in my research, because I'm doing a lot of research on parenting and pair bonding and these roles, because I think restoring the human family is critically important. I came upon some interesting information related to how puberty manifests. So if you look at single mother households, where there is not a masculine presence, that masculine presence could either be defined as a father figure or a brother, or even maybe a brother of the mother. But it has to be genetically similar to the child. So the mother has a child. If there's no masculine presence at all, a girl will actually go through puberty much more quickly than she normally would. Conversely, a boy will actually have delayed puberty. It'll take them a lot longer to go through puberty. So that's just one little data point. Now, if you introduce the masculine role, that seems to balance everything out. So women tend to go through puberty later, or girls, I should say, and men tend to go through puberty earlier, as long as there's a masculine role inside the family union. So literally at a biological level, our bodies know whether or not there's a physical father or a fatherly energy present, and they adjust themselves accordingly. So I think that is an important, very concrete data point to kind of expand our minds to the concept that, yes, there really is a vital interplay that's happening between men and women in the family unit. Another data point to consider is just the innate psychological proclivities. So one of the interesting things about how we assess negative emotions in faces, that's actually mediated by the amygdala. And the amygdala is in charge of activating your fight or flight response. So a feminine face tends to have the capacity to evince stronger positive emotions. So when a woman is smiling, making the cutesy faces that she makes at her child, the baby actually responds to that, and it releases endorphins, oxytocin, which is the socialization neurotransmitter, and dopamine and serotonin, and it really stabilizes the child's psychology, and they really need that. I've been kind of referring to the first 9 months outside of the womb as the external pregnancy. It's really important for the woman to have a deep connection with her child, because that literally her physical appearance is going to be very nurturing. What's interesting is that if a mother or if the baby sees a lot of negative facial expressions, the part of your brain that registered negative facial expressions, the amygdala, once that gets triggered, then the child will feel like it's being shamed or not accepted. And that will cause a lot of personality disturbance issues, lots of issues. So what's interesting is that the feminine role seems to be suited for the 0 to, let's say, 5, 6, 7, and 8 years of life, when there's the intellectual mind hasn't really fully developed yet. That actually starts at around age 7. So in that formative year, what's really happening is that the feminine role has a really strong power to provide a lot of nurturing, support for the ego, because that's important. You're actually building your ego between ages of 1 and 7. And then it's that ego structure that allows you to do everything in the world. If we don't like the term ego, we can simply call it your persona, your sense of self. Well, the masculine energy comes in at around that later time and period, and it has the ability to bring a lot of order and fairness. And if you look at parenting styles all throughout history and even contemporary times, there's a pretty standard type of average that happens. It seems that women tend to be very suited for this earlier time in life and a lot of emotional nurturing, and that proceeds on until the teenage years. Whereas men seem to be more about fairness and orderliness and teaching the child of the world. So without that fatherly essence, what tends to happen is you have an overemphasis of compassion, an overemphasis on receptivity, and sometimes even an inability to be constructively confrontational. We could say something like that. Because in our world, let's face it, you're going to be put in situations where you're going to have to formulate your own opinion, your own position. You're going to have to make a stand and set boundaries at some point. And if you don't do that, if you don't know how to do that because you haven't learned those skills, then it's going to be a massive problem. And, you know, I'll say that in this conversation about what the gender role of men is in the family unit, I'm not trying to say that men are only about worldliness and women are only about child rearing. You know, there's obviously a ton of crossover here, but due to the natural proclivities, I think there are certain innate, natural tendencies where men seem to be better at doing this and women seem to be better at doing that. And then the other thing I'll mention is that from a masculine feminine perspective, these two roles work very well together in the family unit. So one of the things that happens when you have a mother and a father that are actually there and they actually love each other and they actually have a healthy relationship, then that provides a critical foundation for how the child will guide and understand its relationships into the future. One of the things that tends to happen in single family households, whether it's men or women, is that critical piece is missing, and you often have a lot of divergences or problems associated with socialization later. So there's a few things to chew on as far as that discussion.
I'll just jump in quick, and because it'll be short, because I'm in complete agreement with what he said. I've seen those data sets, including, just to add in there, that masculine father figure, like a stepfather, unless he can truly harness that correct masculine, it also speeds up the daughter's puberty. So I'm going to conclude my piece on this particular area with saying we have natural law, and I hate when people make cakes and don't include all the ingredients.
I love that.
Yes. Great analogy there. Michael, what are your thoughts?
Well, cooking is an art. It's hard to get it all on paper. You gotta use that heart and create. But I think this discussion could go in so many different directions, and we've gone around the wheel in a lot of areas. But the things that have come to me, the things that I'm seeing, is that most of the issues we have now, whether it's the family unit, it's the workplace, it's out in the environment with others, is most of our behavior has been altered and influenced in a negative manner. And, it's, say, we're taught from a young age, you have to have power, you have to have control. We feed egoic behaviors to grow and climb the ladder. Obviously you've got the kingdoms, the kings ruled by fear, and created subservient slaves and subservient communities. But, what I see in most of this control, which we could talk for another 2 hours, is a shutting down of the heart, shutting down of the emotions and the feelings on both sides. And I think what gets the divine, gets the masculine in trouble is not feeling, not following the emotional intuition and the feelings and interactions in any situation. They're cut off from a higher higher communication, this beyond the physical self, when you don't assess the heart, the emotions. And, face it, that's how most of us men have been raised. Walk it off, suck it up, be hard, don't show, don't cry, heaven forbid. And the other side of the coin, which I'll just throw out there too, completely separate from this, is not only do we have our own biological ways of viewing things from a masculine and feminine perspective, but we carry incarnational energies into our physical body. And some carry energies that are more feminine in the masculine. Some carry more masculine into a feminine biological system. And that creates an inner turmoil, an inner stress. Why? Well, it's not meant to be easy. We're here to fight our way through figuring out these polarities of energy for lessons. And, it's not meant to be easy. There's so many people crying, hurt, stressed. Their lives are miserable. But there's going to come a time, whether it's on this plane or beyond this plane, that the individual is going to recognize in a peaceful and comforting state that it wasn't meant to be easy.
It sure isn't.
I'd actually like to comment on it if I could.
Please do.
I really agree, and I like the way you phrased it in very easy to understand terms. I think, especially in a lot of spiritual circles, there's a kind of maybe acknowledged or possibly acknowledged emphasis on ease, and a kind of villainization of hardship and challenge and controversy and conflict and things like this. And as far as I understand, looking at the evolution of consciousness and my present understanding it, there's a lot to be gained through conflict. As a matter of fact, from a lawful perspective, when you have a truly honorable agreement, then that's because you have both parties on the same page. Well, in order to do that, they got to communicate with each other. And sometimes they're not on the same page at first, but through the discussion, sometimes a heated one, they will actually exchange the ideas that are needed to at least find some type of a common ground so they can work with each other. So in a sense, to deny yourself conflict and to deny yourself hardship is to deny yourself the very thing that will allow you to unify these principles that are inherent in the conflict itself. And, one thing I wanted to comment on as well is that I would say we've got a bastardization of what the idea of masculinity and femininity is. The idea of a man crying has become synonymous with a beta male or a soy boy or, a feminine man, but I'm a guy, I'm a man, if you haven't figured that out already. Maybe my beard didn't clue you in, but I cry a lot. Anytime I have an emotional release, I let it happen. And I would actually argue that it's more in tune with true masculinity to allow myself the freedom of expression to be vulnerable. And yeah.
Let me make a comment on that again. Just as an example for myself, I was the agnostic scientist for years and years and years and was in the head, analytical, and, never denying the existence of spirit, God, whatever. I just went about my life, if there is a God, he'll help those who help themselves, until I had an event that clearly, without a shadow of a doubt, yes, there are multi-dimensions. Yes, there's all this kind of stuff going on. But energies that flowed into me in that awakening were heart-centered. It was almost like, I like to describe it as I was touched with a divine love, that had no bounds. It had, unconditional love, and it was all emotion. And holy cow, my world changed, and 2.5 years of just intense learning, trying to figure out what the hell happened, I learned some things, head to heart. The most intense leaders, the most intense mentors, male figures, have heart. They have emotion. They have stories from the heart. And I think that's what's missing with a lot of issues today, is most men have lost that heart, and it started from a young age. And again, it's been manipulated by the media, by a huge global negative agenda that wants us knocked off our foundation. They want us polarized. They don't want us balanced. But it's heart-centered emotion connected with clear analytical thinking and reasoning. You got to have both balanced. But for me, what made the difference in my life was the heart-centered, way of communicating. And not only just within myself, but that's also what connected me to a tremendously higher power.
Absolutely. And I think the heart is really the key here, because for even the feminine, it's so important to stay in the heart. I think if we were all coming from that place, not to say the mind isn't important, it's so important, but when the heart is at least in front and having a little bit more guidance, I think you bring in a level of compassion that is missing right now in humanity for one another. We're dismissive of the pains and traumas that we're all going through, but we're also dismissive of our actual powers. We're dismissive of what we're actually capable of, and I think that's part of the whole breakdown here. Now, I have some questions. You guys, this is like an amazing, I'm so happy I brought all three of you on. I'm loving this discussion. I'm actually learning a lot. And I know that anyone who's watching this video is going to be learning a lot. It's a great discussion. I have some questions from my audience. Would you guys be interested in helping to answer some of them? Okay. So we're just, oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think Ben had something, yeah.
I just wanted to, put in that for the left brain people who will be listening anyway. Here's the thing. So this is our superpower. This is what they're blocking. And this is what they meant by being disconnected from God, who people take it so, say, literal in the biblical sense. The heart has the greatest amount of magnetic frequency. Only during the heart's coherence with the mind, so you have to work on coherence, does then the mind, the brain, the programming, you have access to that data warehouse called the subconscious mind that you can change the data. And in changing the data, then you send back out that frequency. And that frequency, if you want to touch, as Michael spoke to about this incredible love, the reason that that is incredible love is because love is not the only, but is the ideal frequency by which we touch into the quantum field, heaven, all it is, whatever word you want to use, in order to change and connect to that blueprint and create it for us. This isn't made up. This is the quantum science that, well, obviously most people don't know. That's the superpower. It's not like, oh, well, I won't be able to do that. Yeah, you are able to do that. And this is the formula. Find someone who teaches you the details of how to do it. But that's the formula to get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And to speak to the conflict that, Justin, you were talking about earlier, and how it's actually a great gift to us to have conflict or to have hardship in our lives. Our greatest growth comes from this place. Our greatest growth, our biggest rewards come from this place. So if you're actually going through a very extreme hardship, then that is probably indicative of you having a pretty significant role in that area of whatever it is to help develop it, nurture it, expose it, bring truth or light to it. So there's a level of, I always find a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? It just makes me feel a little bit better when I think of it that way. You know, when you're in those hardships, to know, like, oh wow, there's a bigger picture here, there's a bigger reason, or something that's going to come through this that's going to be really momentous and huge. So I agree, and I think that this has just been a fantastic discussion. And one of the questions that was asked is actually not an easy one, so we're going to start with it.
All right, let's do it.
Because it'll be a little bit controversial. But this is from Dina. And recently in the Middle East, very patriarchal, masculine energy from history and religion. Dina is there right now. There are awakened souls here, but a minority in all light work somehow leads back to tradition in Islam. My question is how to talk to these people without being sent to jail or get in trouble. So far, I've been doing individual work with those who are interested. As a gatekeeper and light worker, this area is a bit dense. She's asking for some guidance on how she can do her work there, being given where she is.
The oppressive situation.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense one, in fact.
Right. Well, I think it's good to be strategic when you're in these situations. You know, you're going to want to balance idealism with pragmatism, I think. And if you're too idealistic, you'll go out there and you'll try to pound the pulpit and you could get yourself killed because you're living in a dangerous situation. I mean, history is replete with examples of people with strong ideas who were killed because they were corrupting the minds of the youth. So, you know, I would say one example that I try to draw from in my own practice is learn the ideational substrate of the culture that you're trying to appeal to. So, for example, if you're in a Muslim country, study Islam, learn the scripture, learn the culture that's that's around it, learn the mores, the cultural norms, all that stuff. If you can get a good command of how that works, then that itself becomes a good language that you can use to speak to people in words that they will disarm their reactiveness and actually allow the true idea to be carried through. So a lot of times, you know, for example, if you were in a Muslim country and you would say something that was speaking to a New Age concept, that's going to trigger a defensive response, and they're just going to immediately throw up a barrier. And, you know, you might even suffer some social ostracization as a result. But if you learn how to tailor and what I would say attenuate your ideas within the language of whatever people you're trying to speak to, that can be really powerful. And as well, have a long view perspective. Instead of trying to convince somebody in 2 minutes that you just met on the street and completely change their reality, you know, develop a relationship with them. Let them know that you care about their well-being, and then slowly drip in the ideas that you think they're ready to receive. And then I think that's probably pretty good start. So there you go.
Absolutely. You need to know your audience.
Yeah. I think I can add to what Justin says is absolutely work on the best aspects of the faith that the individual is within when you could be in a very charged environment that could create issues if you go against that faith. But what I would say is rise so that others also rise. Work on yourself. Improve yourself. Become an ideal role model so that you can shine out and be a good example, a positive example. Again, rise so that others too shall rise. And I guess in any situation.
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm sure Dina's doing a lot of work on herself, but we tend to, you know, when we're so passionate about affecting change in the world, we often forget how quickly change can happen on the minuscule level, like just individual and perhaps even just one person. And I feel like if you can even just make a small difference with one person, you've done a huge job because it becomes a domino effect. Ben, what are your thoughts?
Well, we definitely know how it worked out for the Jesuits when they came to convert the Native Americans to Christianity, beheadings and scalpings. So clearly that approach is not effective. I agree with what Justin and Michael said for sure. So the only thing I would add to that would be when you're employing the suggestions that they made, just like the Jesuits did here in Ontario, when they came across the moderates who were the Huron Indians, there ended up being now support. So you start to build a bit of a community, so it's not just yourself. Obviously, you know, we hope that doing all of these things helps to increase this level of change. I will always throw out, you know, an air of caution. Why are we there? Is that necessary for us to make that conversion? Now, yet again, that was the issue with the Jesuits. You know, they asked the native chief, he says, so what happens if I don't accept Jesus? Well, you'll go to hell. And what if I didn't know about Jesus? Then you wouldn't go to hell. And so the question is, do we need to be opening up cans of worms unnecessarily? I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, she happens to be there and she's, you know, looking to share a message. But, you know, you want to try and find a tribe and be prepared. I think like any other great thought leader in history has gone through, there may be repercussions and there may be, you know, there may be loss of life as a result of the greatness that you've brought to it. So I personally would err on the side of caution and, you know, work from example in the way that I live in. And I love what Justin said, and you said, you know, like know your audience, learn the language, and effectively plant gentle seeds and allow their brain to come to the conclusion that they'll come back to you. And that's what happens to me. People come back to me. They go, oh, you know, 6 months later, oh, eureka, I need some more of what you said. So.
Yeah. And I think, too, it's important to remember the power of planting a seed. That you may not see the growth right away, but if you planted a seed, it'll take root. Yeah, and that's important to understand, too. Don't minimize the value of planting seeds. We also have a question from Greg. What's the difference between soldier and warrior, or perceptions about being strong and strength, or allowing an open heart? What is the stigma and its benefits, especially now? I know we touched on this earlier. Sure, go ahead, Ben.
I'll just start with the soldier warrior thing. This is my opinion. The soldier is an automaton. The soldier has been programmed into a system where you have given up your power to someone else to fulfill an agreement or a destination that probably, if you listen to your heart, don't agree with. That's my opinion. The warrior is the guy that just said what he said to you and is not afraid to wake you up to that particular bit of information. I'm prepared, you're prepared to go and express truth in the face of adversity. That's my opinion.
Great answer. Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. I'll just throw out a different perspective on that very concept. You know, I think a soldier is not governed by the truth and what they feel is right, and ultimately, you know, the creator's will, if we really want to get down to the brass tacks, I guess. They're guided by somebody else. So in a sense, a soldier has cut off their ability to make decisions right and wrong and outsourced that to some other agency. That doesn't necessarily mean it's completely evil, but if there's no check and balance system, then you could easily be run amok. So I think when we consider the difference between a warrior and a soldier, we're not talking about, a warrior is a samurai warrior and a soldier is just a guy in uniform. It's not their physical appearance that matter. It's their behavior. It's their relationship to a proposed directive. So a warrior can be a Marine, can be a National Guardsman, can be a police officer, can be anybody really. Anybody who takes it upon themselves to discern the value and efficacy and the merit of what's proposed. And I would argue that a really good example of a soldier turned warrior is somebody like Edward Snowden or Chelsea Manning, somebody who was just going along to get along, somebody who was just following orders, and then something changed inside them and they said, you know what, I've had enough. I have to take a stand, even if it means me versus the entire world. And I think that's a key difference.
So I'll add to that. Yeah. If I can get the words, surrender still comes to mind, and it gets into the quantum fields that Benjamin was talking about. We're on this world. We're operating from our biological operating system that is programmed by all that around us that is telling us what to do. The soldier takes his orders from a higher command, whether that's a benevolent command or not. But there's different levels where what Justin brought about, where that soldier perhaps finds a moment of clarity or not, or questioning that authority. There's a higher power out there. There's a higher operating system that you can only get to through the heart center, through tapping into the quantum field, as Benjamin so well knows. And you can accept that higher operating system or not. You have to know it's there. You have to have a belief. You have to ask for it. You have to surrender to it and ask for that higher operating system, not my, but thy higher will, to come in and give you the insight to what you probably have been cut off from, veiled from all of your life. That's where individuals are becoming, they're awakened to a higher state that they've been veiled from. I kind of liken it. We're all down here as biological computer systems operating on our own operating system. Some DOS PC systems have a Apple, they're all screwed up. But anyway, we're firewalled through a quantum. Think about the encryption systems that we've been able to produce in our programming just on this world. Now think about as above, so below. Think about what kind of encryption system spirit could produce that are veiling us, that are firewalling us for a purpose, so we learn our messy lessons. How do you break through that firewall? You surrender. You surrender to higher will, that higher programming. You got to be careful who you surrender to, because there are, as above, so below. There is majestic, glorious, and sinister on this world, so it is on other planes. But, as for me, I've surrendered to my higher power, my higher infinite creator, to gain greater clarity. And oh my God, it hasn't come through a straw, it's come through like a fire hose. But that's an example. Most people are veiled, we're firewalled from this higher spirit. And if we would just be still and surrender to it and ask for its guidance, ask for its infinite wisdom about the divine feminine, about the divine masculine, how can I use those traits to my highest good? I think we've got to get people doing that more often, and the rest will fix itself.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that, Michael. It's an incredible necessity. And I think if I made an analogy of that, soldier turned warrior is the soldier prepared to be court-martialed when he realizes that he's about to push a button and blow up a bunch of children. Or in the instance when he's with all of his beta automaton soldiers and they are raping women and children or beating other human beings, and you decide to stand between that and stand up for the right of humanity because you've done just what Michael said. You connected to that divine messaging that is always there.
I think the warrior always maintains the connection, and the soldier is the disconnect. Because it's the only way the soldier can function and not get in trouble, so to speak, at least from the hierarchy point of view. So those are great answers. Thank you so much. Okay, this question, I'd like any of you guys jump in here. How does someone accept and implement happiness into the divine masculine, especially when the awareness is focused on disappointment and anger after dealing with negative actions from the past, even the present? And this is to bring joy and balance back into life through the heart space awareness.
Go ahead. Okay, I guess I'll start the ball rolling. I'm not exactly sure what they're specifying, but I'll speak to what one interpretation would be. It sounds like there's maybe a little relationship turmoil in there. So I'll speak to that a little bit. One thing I've discovered in my studies is that there are these ancient biological programs that govern pair bonding. And if you don't embody your gender's role, or at least a role that is defined as a masculine and feminine, then it causes a lot of relationship problems. So this is true for whether we're talking about homosexual relationships or heterosexual relationships. There has to be a masculine initiative force that has certain qualities that will activate the potentials biologically and psychologically in the feminine role. So to speak to a heterosexual relationship, beta males often are cheated on by their women because they do not embody traditional masculine roles. And if you don't embody a traditional masculine role, then you're not going to satisfy the biological demands of your gender, and then you're going to look to go somewhere else. So what is that in the pickup artist community, this is called hypergamy. So female hypergamy is the desire to trade up to get a better guy. Male hypergamy is the desire to trade up and get a better woman. There are different qualities that are looked for in there. So there's a reason why, James Bond is one of the archetypal masculine alpha figures, because he's a strong, confident man. He's unwavering in his determination, yet he's compassionate and kind at the same time. And, he has social status, he has standing. So there's a lot of things that are hardwired into women that they're looking for in men. And if you as a man don't learn how to satisfy these things, then your woman will go out and naturally start to have these problems, naturally start to be more nagging, naturally start to look at other guys, naturally do the so-called shit test that happens a lot. And these things aren't problems necessarily. It's actually, first of all, it's an indication. If you're dating somebody and you're seeing I'm speaking to the men at this point. If you're dating somebody and you're seeing your girlfriend or your wife is a little more naggy than normal, she's maybe even finding other guys attractive, you may be starting to wonder if she loves you anymore, it's because some part of you is not satisfying her biological urges. The same is true for men. Men seek out the highest ideal female that can support them emotionally and physically, as well as provide good support for their mates, for their children. And one of the ways that men do that is through physical appearance, of course, but then also emotional support. So I'm giving a very rough, super quick and dirty description of this. Is a massive topic. But what I'm really trying to speak to here is that in the boots on the ground aspects of a relationship, if you are a man and you want to embody a traditional masculine role, study true masculinity. Actually look at what satisfies women overall. I mean, there's lots of great resources. Unfortunately, there's not really crystally clear defined resources, but there's a lot of data out there to chew on. You have to be very discerning, but there's a lot of data out there to chew on. Same thing for women. If you're in a relationship and your man isn't loving you enough, he's just not giving you enough attention, then learn what the traditional feminine roles can do to actually create that. And this, just to leave it as a final comment on this, this is something I'm actually like working really hard on, and I'm going to produce a lot of material on this in the future, because I think there's a void of this information, and it's being purged from the collective mind at record pace, and I think it's causing a lot of problems. So I'll just leave it at that.
No, that's great information. And for anyone who's watching, Justin's website is stillnessinthestorm.com, and I'm sure you're going to be posting a lot of your information there, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to have to be proactive, that if you're a woman and you notice yourself nagging or any of that, or if you're a man and you notice that you're doing, observe that, be a witness, say, oh, okay, something's not right here. I'm not happy with something. How do I address this in the relationship? So it goes both ways of, if you are recognizing that you're not happy, you want to be proactive to address it within the relationship and find a solution, or find some common ground, at least open up the discussion so that, whatever needs to be brought to the surface is brought to the surface. That was great. Thank you so much. Michael, Ben, which one wants to go first?
All right. Well, I like what Justin said there. Absolutely. An okay book that might be worth picking up if that's the relevant situation. The Way of the Superior Man. I forget who wrote that, but it's a good book to give you some perspective. I interpreted the question sort of also that it was just that, this man has lost his way, or he has felt the burden. He probably lives in North America. He's felt the burden of, men are not good enough kind of rhetoric that has been happening. And then how do you find happiness in that space? And the only thing that I can speak to on that, really, again, what Michael has said, what Justin has said, is coming back and doing that work on yourself, getting heart center. I'm a huge proponent myself in finding purpose. What is that feeling inside of you that turns you on, that purpose? Go for that. Daily meditation is so incredibly powerful. I don't just do that. I also use Brain Tap by Dr. Patrick Porter to help, get my brain waves down into alpha and down into theta, and help to reprogram some. Trust me, I come from some crazy ass stuff as a child. So, I've had programs over the years, and I go, dude, who are you, right? So, as part of that journey, I think all of us here could attest. I'm sure all of us here have experienced those moments of, no happiness, or feeling alone on the planet, or that, we're unworthy. And it's simply about cultivating. Well, I'm going to say everything I said is help cultivating for yourself, but don't underestimate the value and necessity as social creatures to engage with new people, finding a new tribe if that's necessary, because there's a possibility that what's happening is that you are the sum of your 5 closest friends and they all suck. So you need to up level. These are just a few ideas, but
Yeah,
thanks.
absolutely. And Michael?
Yeah, I don't think I have that much more to add other than things coming to my mind as, seasons change, you may think you have everything figured out and you're down this one path and this is how you are. But if you want to have a relationship, you want to interact with others, it's got to be a give and take. There's got to be complementary energies to create those energetic connections, and when I say energetic connections, everything's energy. As we dance around the polarities and duality of our life, as these polarities make connections, circuits are completed, and that's what sparks your lessons. So I think the point is don't be so rigid in thinking you have to be a set way, but bend a little, be complementative to that which you seek to attract. Because again, to really create, what's the word, the unity, create the balance, sometimes one side has to be a little off kilter to join with that it seeks to attract, or vice versa. Again, it's to keep us on our toes. It's not meant to be easy.
Complacency is not where we want to be. Okay, well, that was great. And I think we're going to end off on this last question, because I think it's a great way to end this, is, how can we best support the masculine as well as the divine masculine energies? One of the reasons I'm doing this whole conversation with you guys is to be supportive of the masculine, give the masculine a little bit more of a platform and a voice right now, because I don't think the masculine has enough of a voice out there. And also, from both places, men and women, they don't fully understand the power of their masculine energy and how crucial it is, as well as the feminine energy. But we talk a lot about the feminine energy. And again, I'm going to be doing a whole discussion like this on the divine feminine. But how would any of you suggest that we best support both just the masculine in general, but then also like the energies?
Well, I'll just say that everything we've kind of said as modalities and opportunities, I think it's of value to seek out alpha masculine in your communities, or, online. Look, hooking up Michael or Justin and start going through their stuff, for example, and start listening to their messages and building a community around that is huge. And so I will touch on this community aspect. I am on the board of directors of the International Men's Day Canada. Now, it was started by Dr. Tilak Singh in the Caribbean 20 years ago, November 19th. And Canada became the 82nd country, and this will be our third year doing this. And it is exclusively to give voice to the masculine. And what I want to say to that, which is an incredible inspiration, because there has been pushback in a number of countries, including here, around the whole guys need another day for themselves. Don't you get every day? And, what's most incredible, I know I'm a bit animated. What's most incredible is that the majority of the supporters in International Men's Day are women, because any awakened women understand the importance of the of giving voice to our men and our boys, because we realize, anyone who's become aware knows what we have done to the men that are in my age bracket and older. So those are the things that I personally would do. I get involved in those things, and I'll let the rest of you speak to that.
What came to my mind as you were talking, Benjamin, is, find and do what you love. Find and gravitate to what will bring you joy in the community, such as the organization that you mentioned. There's many, but I think the bottom, there's so many men have been knocked off their foundation on purpose, because those who seek to control us want us knocked off our foundation, so we don't make the best decisions. And how do you counteract that? You find and you do what you love. You put your body in that energetic state of just joy, compassion, caring, leadership, love. And again, people, I've heard all my life about vibration. What's that crazy stuff? Energetic vibration in that state. That is what will open up your heart center that has been wounded. I was doing some shamanic cleansing with some partners that I'm training with, and they were visualizing the dagger that had gone through my neck, the sword through my back, and we were working to clear those multidimensional energies. But know that we're all wounded in some way, and we've got to heal ourselves. We've got to do the work. We've got to do the inner work. We've got to do the healing of ourselves. We've got to fill our cup full of love. We have to heal ourselves before we can ever go out in the community and be effective in assisting others in that way. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. That was great. Justin?
Great answers. Well, I echo both what you gentlemen just shared. I think finding the good exemplifications or good role models for true masculinity is really critically important, especially for young men. One of the ways that men kind of learn how to be good men is in a communal setting. And interestingly enough, like I was mentioning earlier, the top dog men who seem to get the most women are influenced by what women choose for the men. So if you're looking to social media, if you're looking to mainstream media, if you're looking to, the deep state media to try to figure out how to be a good man, you're going to be misled. So what I would say is, get to the core foundations. And as far as I've understand it, just to give some really baseline practical advice for how to be a man, from my perspective and my research and understanding, I would say men self-actualize and feel good about themselves and develop their sense of self-confidence, as you were saying, Michael, by taking on a burden, by doing something meaningful. If you do something too easy, then you're not really going to self-actualize. And it seems to be, in my analysis of the psychology, that, the hero's journey speaks to this really well. In the hero's journey, the hero doesn't want to take on the hero's journey. He's forced into it. But in the act of doing so, he proves to himself and he draws forth from himself qualities that he didn't even know were there, locked in his feminine potential. So as a man, if you're 10 years old, if you're 50 years old, ask yourself, what burden are you bearing right now that proves to you how amazing you are as a man? And I would say the other thing too is that men need to take up some calling that they feel is valuable to their community. So if you can develop yourself and do it in an altruistic bent and really learn how to do that in a service-oriented way, then you will feel so good about yourself that you will feel incredibly confident. You will easily garner the attentions of the women in your life that you want, and you'll do so honorably and without any toxicity. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave it. I mean, there's so much more I'd love to say. But.
Justin, that's beautiful. I mean, and you mentioned the hero's journey. For anyone who hasn't read that book, I highly recommend it. That's beautiful.
Yeah, very well said. You guys have all shared such valuable information here. I would add also that for anyone here, just whether and this goes for all men and women, we talked at the very beginning about the need to express yourself in a manner where you're being respectful of your audience and you're honoring your own truth and your own voice. And I think if we as a society, both men and women, start coming together and listening to one another and allowing others to be heard, regardless if you agree or you don't agree, you don't ever have to agree with everything that you're hearing. But if we can start to bridge the gap a little bit by allowing these conversations to be had, and then understanding that each of us has a value here. And men have just as equal a value as women have equal value as men. We actually work better together. And so my hope is that we really start to understand the coherence and synchronization and harmonization of our masculine and feminine energies, as well as our biological selves, to come together and have these important conversations. And even if something triggers you, where it doesn't feel right, or you feel like some sort of emotion coming up, instead of reacting and lashing out, take it upon yourself to be the witness and ask yourself why. Ask yourself why you feel this way when someone brings up a topic. When we start to take ownership of our own feelings and our own thoughts, then we can start to heal and come together and be open to discussing that. If you feel a certain way, be open to discussing it, but don't do it in a point the finger kind of way. Own your feelings. Say, I feel this and I don't know why. And you may be surprised at what comes out and what transpires in these conversations. Guys, thank you so much. And this has been such an incredible, this is way better than I thought it was going to be. So, wow, and this is why I wanted to do this. I really feel like the masculine are underrepresented here, and it's time to bring the conversation, the platform, to open up the discussion to be more harmonizing and hearing one another's voices, as well as I know I have so many male viewers who are needing models such as you three, to hear from you and your perspectives, as well as the women. It's important for us to hear strong, intelligent, empathic men who have very valuable information to share with us. So thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So to my audience, I'm going to leave everyone's information in the description below so that you can, whether it's Facebook pages, website, all that kind of stuff. So if you're wanting to connect, all that information will be in the description below. Thank you so much for being part of this. Stay tuned. I will have a Divine Feminine video that comes out as well. And then I hope all three of you would be willing to come back for a discussion with everyone.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. And we'll be back with you very soon.